You slowly become someone you don't recognize. You don't notice narcissistic abuse all at once. That's the frightening part. Nobody wakes up one morning and says, "I think I'm losing myself." It happens slowly, quietly, so slowly that by the time you realize something is wrong, you barely recognize the person you've become. I used to think I was emotionally strong, calm, patient, confident, easygoing. I trusted myself. I trusted my instincts. I could speak freely without rehearsing every sentence in my head first. But over time, something inside me started changing. At first, I thought stress was the problem. Then maybe anxiety. Then maybe I was becoming too sensitive. That's what narcissistic abuse does. It slowly disconnects you from your own reality. You start questioning your emotions, your memory, your reactions, your instincts. And eventually, you start monitoring yourself constantly. Your tone, your words, your facial expressions, your timing, your emotions. You become emotionally hypervigilant. Not because you're manipulative, because your nervous system learned that being yourself creates conflict. I didn't even realize how much fear had entered my body. I started apologizing constantly, for asking questions, for expressing emotions, for reacting to hurtful behavior, for existing in ways that took up emotional space. And eventually, I became quieter, smaller, more careful. I stopped saying what I really felt because every conversation somehow became my fault. I started over-explaining simple things. I rehearsed conversations in my head before they even happened. I became emotionally exhausted trying to avoid conflict that could never actually be avoided. And that's the trap. Because the arguments were never really about solving anything. The confusion was the control. The emotional instability was the environment. The unpredictability kept me emotionally trapped. One day she would be kind, warm, affectionate, emotionally vulnerable. And just when I thought things were finally improving, everything would suddenly change again. Coldness, criticism, distance, blame, emotional punishment. And slowly, your nervous system becomes addicted to relief. Not love. Relief. That's one of the hardest parts for survivors to understand. You're not addicted to the abuse itself. You become addicted to the moments where the abuse temporarily stops. Those brief moments of emotional safety begin feeling like love. And because the kindness returns occasionally, you keep hoping the relationship can go back to what it once felt like. But eventually I realized something devastating. I could no longer recognize myself. I had become anxious all the time, emotionally exhausted, disconnected from myself. I stopped trusting my own thoughts. I stopped feeling emotionally safe, even when I was alone. And the frightening thing is, most survivors don't notice this transformation immediately because it happens gradually. Year after year, argument after argument, apology after apology, until survival mode becomes your personality. I think that's one of the deepest wounds narcissistic abuse leaves behind. Not just pain. Identity erosion. You slowly disappear inside the relationship. Your confidence changes. Your nervous system changes. Your ability to relax changes. Your sense of self changes. And because the manipulation is often subtle, you keep believing the problem must somehow be you. That may be if you communicate better, love harder, be calmer, be more patient, be less emotional. The relationship will finally feel safe again. But emotional safety never truly arrives in relationships built on control. Only temporary relief. That realization changed everything for me. Because for years I believed I was failing inside the relationship. I didn't realize the relationship itself was slowly dismantling me psychologically. And once you finally see that, you can never completely unsee it again. Healing from narcissistic abuse is strange. Because you're not just healing from what someone did to you. You're healing from who you had to become in order to survive them. That's why recovery feels so emotional. You're trying to reconnect with parts of yourself that slowly disappeared over years of emotional conditioning. Your voice, your instincts, your confidence, your emotional safety. And rebuilding those things takes time. But I think awareness is where healing begins. The moment you realize, this isn't who I really am. That moment matters. Because underneath the anxiety, the hypervigilance, the emotional exhaustion, the people-pleasing, the fear, you still exist. The real you is still there. And if you no longer recognize yourself, that may be the biggest sign something inside the relationship has been harming you for far longer than you realized.